The second show, the family show 2, happened in Windsor, Ontario, and the subtitle was Family Fillings, and with the second L in brackets, becoming Family Filings, is when you use a rasp and things fall down. And family fillings, of course, is what you've become filled with from your family. Now, as you see, it's a nice big room, and I built a separation in the room because Windsor, as I discovered by living there for 2 months, is kind of connected with Detroit, which is in the United States. So you had this kind of feeling of the twin brother or the twin sister. And it was interesting because across the water you basically saw on the other side, you saw in the United States. I remember also I went to see Detroit and was quite amazed that not most, but a big part of downtown was just like boarded up buildings and stuff. And that's when I learned about the riots that happened before. Now, the bed, as you see, became separated, and so you had like 5 different installations. This one was called Winter Casualty. Again, every piece that you see I bought or made in Windsor. The bed now, before was called Coming to Bed or Not to Bed. This time was called 2 Beds Are Better Than One. You have the small drawing that we'll see later, and the conversation piece itself changed again because Windsor was the more city dwelling as opposed to rural dwelling. And as you can see, I've put the video again, and I think that's the last time I've shown that video since. I remember when 1991.
And it was going to be crazy in the house, because we live in a 2-story house, so it's like running up and down and up and
So
down.
this video, this time there was no drawing, and it was placed directly on a podium by the entrance. So as you came in the exhibition room, it was basically this person who would be greeting you. Conversation piece, nice flower pot. This piece was called 6 Years of Burnt Toast. This is when I started to use smell. Like I said before, every aspect, every inch, every centimeter of a space, of an artwork has a meaning for me. So light, even room temperature, you could say, the smells. So this is interesting how, I'm sure many people are curious actually how I manufactured those beds. The side table most likely came from the Salvation Army, and here's the pastel drawing I did a few, maybe a few years before, of different people from my family. I used to do a lot of oil pastel drawings, 6 feet, 7 feet drawing. And then when they would get bored, they would It's very important for me to create also kind of a intimacy in the room. So that's why I find often working in group show is difficult for that type of work I was making, because the whole atmosphere was actually part of the work itself. Man pulling another man through his leg, so it's a gay beach when he's trying to try that. So they went to the kitchen, and then he turned around like, whoop, jack, bang, and he broke his collarbone, and boy, she came back and we'll get to the details as we get further. So you have the turntables. Now here you have the wall of toast, so it was called 6 Years of Burnt Toast. So the title in itself is the idea of if a person each day burns a toast for 6 years, then it also means that he hasn't learned what he's doing because he keeps burning it. So there's a kind of tension building up, and the building up of tension, then it's also the layering of these toasts every day so that it becomes a wall. And I had many stories from people from the smell, so I was quite happy about this aspect of the artwork. I bought the bread wholesale from a bakery, and I wonder if you know what's the secret of having 6 years of burnt toast done in a week or a couple of days. I think it took to make these toasts. Wow, we'll see that later. And the beds. And I always like to say that a good artist is like a magician. Basically, you have to believe it's true, but there's always a trick behind. So to make these toasts, I actually use, I think, 2 or 3 barbecues. So I've basically burnt them outside, which was interesting because it was winter, so I was in the snow, and all these loaves of bread piling and piling and piling up. The core itself is not burned because I was just running out of time, and the piece itself partly fell down a couple of times during the exhibition. So it was quite a challenge because there was no glue, no metal support, nothing. It was actually the weight of the toast themselves. I love this piece, a very nice piece. And in the end, I took a few toasts and I kind of made an edition of a toast, a picture, and of course everything signed in a bag. Now, Winter Casualty. Again, I say Regina, but Windsor again in winter, quite cold. And this piece is very simple, Winter Casualty, because casualty as something that you see every day, like it's casual, and casualty as the victim. So basically, you come in the room and you see this little child who's totally overprotected, and he's so much overprotected that basically he fell down and he can't get up himself. So he's kind of stuck there and he needs help from the people to get up again. So it raised a lot of questions like where are the parents, why is he alone? I don't think you have a feeling of that child being dead. It's more of a time suspension. I think, again, I said time is very important in my work, in the way of creating kind of timeless aspect, a situation that you don't know how long has been lasting, but lasts in a kind of a perpetual time. Part of my aesthetic, want it or not, I think is the 50s, 60s. So many of the bed, as you see here, the side lamps, the side table, correspond to, I guess, the aesthetic of my parents. But as I said before, this is not autobiographical. I just use whatever reference I have. I don't think in 2008 a young person would make an artwork using these type of colors, this type of imagery, because he hasn't been brought up with that information. So I find it very interesting in 2008 looking back and recognizing these kind of these wouldn't be my own bed sheets, but would be bed sheet of parents in the year 50s and 60s. So like I said, magician, a good artist is like a magician. So there must always be tricks, but you know, the idea is for you to believe as you see. So actually, these are fake beds. They're just built of cardboard or of wood, and with some neon lights under. Again, the challenge of that whole series of installation is that none of these work existed before I submitted the gallery. So again, I thank all the galleries for trusting me, because it was quite a challenge to get an exhibition and not knowing if the work that you're gonna make are actually gonna be good work, you know, if they're gonna be able to stand as artwork and to express. And so far I've always felt that these were excellent exhibition, which is why I find this documentation very important. She found an ideal solution, which was too much TV, because then everybody is quiet. So it's like there was this. So here you have a good sense of how I've organized the space, and the 6 years of burnt toast created a real wall to separate the space, again making a connection between the exhibition and Windsor. The difference between the first family show and the second family show actually came for the third one, in Peterborough, because what happened between these two exhibitions is that through a good friend I figured out that I was sexually abused as a child, which is something that I kind of had hints but no memories or concrete evidence, you could say, until I started to know and then ask my parents, and then I got some confirmation and stuff. So I know this is not a nice aspect to hear, but I find it interesting because between the first and the second show I actually started to read about that subject. Now let's go back to Windsor. So here you have the turntables. So what you hear is actually the scratching of the needles on the empty trays that are turning around. Again, it's still the idea that from far away everything looks perfect. Before we had the two speakers. This time we have just basically silence. Everything is nice and perfect on top of the table. And on the chair this time it's not tape player but record player. And they are empty. So basically the voice is gone now. There's no longer possibility of speaking. Very aesthetic. Want it or not, I have a very classical way of looking at art with regards to composition, balance. This is something that's just who I am. This could make a beautiful painting. And here you have, and you see that the arms are actually attached with a wire. So for me the feeling was that not only is there a silence, but if somebody would like to speak up, it would even be difficult for that person because he is attached, but there is still life. None of the turntable are stopped and none of the chairs are empty. So it's that, I guess, again, the feeling of tension and hope at the same time. Regina for me was the rural world, so a big wood table with 6 chairs for the bigger family, and Windsor for me was really the city dwelling. So 4 chairs, a smaller kitchen, smaller apartment, and typical chrome 50s, 60s furniture.
Everything was in you know, the time that I was told, you know, like he was walking in the field.
Most of these objects are gone except for the really smaller ones. So I guess the dishes and flowers and pots might be somewhere in my home as the bed sheets and stuff, but the table and the lamps and all these things are gone. Again, it's not about so much fetishish of object, but more that the object reflect a certain era, which I guess that's very personal for me because it reflects the era of when I grew up, or maybe more the era of my parents, kind of, or when I was really, really very young. And just some nice last zooming to give a nice idea of the space.
I didn't like that. I remember one day.